Okay, back again, diving deeper into our analysis of sort of Detective Lou's thought process. But I'm taking a little bit of what Detective Lou thought and saying, now, wait a minute. If this is to be believed, and we know that whoever did this was well attuned, but we're also being told here that whoever did this tried to stun JonBenét and get her in a suitcase. So we're talking about somebody that's really clumsy and really, really clumsy. It's a crime scene of confusion. You know what that means? That means that somebody doesn't know what they're doing. That means that there was no intent to do it. That means that somebody is inexperienced and there's no intent to do what they did. And so it's a panic. It's a panicked crime scene. And so because it's a panic crime scene, you're going to have somebody try to, oh, you know, where they try to put her and there's fibers in here, this and that. Yeah, because it's her suitcase. Is anybody asking those questions? You see what I'm saying? Like, who's asking those questions? Maybe they've been asked. I've not heard them being asked. But I do know that, you know, John is like, oh, in his book, he's like, oh, there's an old Samsonite suitcase up against the window. Whoever did this, you're saying that they tried to, they stunned her. Apparently, I guess they tried to take her straight to the window is what you're telling me. Maybe that's to be believed. They took her straight to the window and they tried to, they basically get out, get out, get out, get out. And they stunned her. Maybe it didn't work. Maybe it didn't. But apparently she's, you know, she's knocked out enough for you to want to put her in a suitcase. But when the suitcase doesn't work, and we know that at some point in time she screamed, so there's a cause for panic there, probably before the stun gun went off. And so if we're to believe that there's a stun gun, before the stun gun went off, she screamed. Neighbors heard it. That's a fact. But whoever this person was panicked, tried to put her in a suitcase, didn't work, and then decided, instead of dropping her and leaving, decided to run back and put her in another room and assault her. That takes time. Who would do that? That makes no sense.
And what about the packing peanuts, this little white thing you see here, and some leaves around there? How did they presumably get into this room? Because this is not a room that's exposed to the outside. Cindy?
That's my dad picked up on that because his thought as to how the intruder got in was through that window well that was 2 rooms away from where JonBenét's body was found. And there's just no way that they found what was appeared to be a packing peanut and also a leaf, a brown leaf. And those were consistent with what my dad found as disturbance in the window well that he thought the intruder entered into.
So it's a theory, but it is consistent. As well as pulled off, the intruder picks up some leaves and a white peanut from this window well. There's actually an area that's cleared out by that, comes through here, has his tools and his escape device here, suitcase, has access to lots of other things in this basement. And so you begin to see how the puzzle pieces are coming together. So coming up, why what you don't see in this basement is just as important as what was found here, and how you can help solve this crime from your living room. Stay with us. We're back bringing you the latest on JonBenét Ramsey's Unsolved. Just as important as everything we have shown you in this basement, right, is what wasn't found at the scene. Because there was no stun gun. There was no high-tech branded boots, as a track of which was discovered next to her body. There was no duct tape that was used, that could match what was used on JonBenét's mouth. And most chillingly, a broken piece of a paintbrush was never found. John, explain why that paintbrush clue is so significant.
Lou thought that was critical because the garrote was fashioned at the site.
Think about that for a second. This unaliver came with nothing. They didn't even have a pen and pad to write the ransom note. So they came with nothing. This person, listen to what I'm telling you. This person was so aware, what you're telling me, was so aware of the crime scene, was so familiar with the crime scene, that they were smart enough to be like, yo, everything in this crime scene, I got everything I'm going to need. Because they came in, found Patsy's stash, right? Found some cord that they didn't come with, probably. Found a pen and a pad to write the letter. Found a suitcase, right? Put the suitcase up there and, found where they were supposed to go to move the metal out the way and break the window. You know what I mean? Like, how did they even know that was down there, right? They knew that because they're familiar. How did you know so much about the house? And I mean, I'm talking about intricate details that you know about the house. If there's an intruder theory because this is what I'm saying, in order to know that much about the house, you have to be inside the house to scope it, right? And you have to know where things are. You can't just show up at a house and be like, oh, I'm going to rob this house, or I'm going to take her for ransom. That's a job to where you get in and get out. You don't stop to smell the roses and assault anybody. That's not that kind of job. If that's that kind of job, you're in and out. You're not stopping and being like, oh, you know what? I think I want to take her to the window. You know what? Never mind. I want to stun her. You know what? I want to fiddle around with, trying to put her in a suitcase. Or you know what? That doesn't work. Or you know what? I want to go over and assault her. Oh, you know what? Now I'm done. That's not that kind of job, man. That does not happen. Who would do that? We're talking about somebody, because this is somebody who has to kind of weave in and out. How would they know what they're going to do? You see what I'm saying? Because you had enough. What you're telling me, you had enough to tie her up. What were you going to do with that? So you tied her up. You clearly got her tied up, but you couldn't get her in a suitcase. Where did you know? How did you know where everything was in the house? That means that this is somebody who was intricate in understanding. So that means if the person that maybe the housekeeper let in, as some people have suggested, the housekeeper would have had to been there to say, no, go get this, go get this, go get this, because she screamed. Now we got to put a stop, and we got to, all this and that and the third. Either that, or this is somebody who was already inside the house and knew very well where to get everything. This is somebody who knew exactly where to go to pick up tools to do certain things. Which is why I think that something may have happened, and then Patsy woke up and ran downstairs, and then they spent all night kind of staging the crime scene. Because now, whatever I feel about you is not important. I'm just worried about keeping, and people do things for people have all sorts of motivations why they would, why would you, if that were the case, then why would she help John? And this is all alleged, but people have all kinds of reasons why they want to help, because she's in a 3-story mansion. So she has money, and she's living a lifestyle that, if I do this, then that means that, I'm gonna have to let go of this lifestyle, because I might have to move out of this house because, we might not be able to sustain it. We might be good now, but we might not be able to sustain it because it's only 5 years into the mortgage. And so you got to go another 30 years. This house not paid off. So if the money dries up, then the entire lifestyle goes away. And what's that going to do with me and my son?
Right where the crime occurred. And the paintbrush was broken into 3 pieces. One piece used to fashion the garrote. Another piece was at the scene, possibly used in the sex assault of the child. But that third piece was missing. And what we know from criminal investigations is that a suspect often will leave something at the scene or take something with them. And they may have taken that paintbrush. Of course, they could get rid of it, but the DNA will remain the same.
So again, the garrote was probably the weapon, right? They put the rope around the piece of the paintbrush, and they had 2 other pieces that you're pointing out, which should be a big clue. And there was also someone touched that garrote. Someone touched this child. And well before his death in 2010, Detective Lou Smith was sure that DNA would be the key to solving JonBenét's. Take a listen.
Left behind, I believe, part of his DNA. From the victim's panties, 2 spots of blood containing mixture of DNA. The victim being one source, and the other a male.
So far, authorities have found male DNA that does not match any member of the Ramsey family in 3 places. Under JonBenét's fingernails, right there's your hands laid up, on her underwear, and on the long john leggings that she wore that night. So Cindy, your father left behind a meticulously organized document of the most important information from his investigation, including a report on the unidentified male's DNA. Now, I'm sure a lot of people watching are wondering why we just can't submit that for genetic genealogy test and just do it yourself. But it's not that.
And sometimes, and that's a problem with that goes against the John theory. If this is another male's DNA, it's an unidentified male's DNA. It could also be the case that it's not enough of a sample. right? It's not enough of the sample to definitively point to anyone, right? That could be the case, but yeah, that could also go against. That could be an argument against the John Ramsey
Simple, I understand.
ideal or
It's not.
angle.
I mean, we would be all over that if we could do it. But that requires actual DNA. So the method that they test DNA under for genealogy purposes is different than the way it was tested under the Long John. So one is called STR testing and the other is called SNP testing. So we would actually have to have actual DNA in order to submit it for the SNP testing that would be necessary to do the genealogy research.
Cindy's team, I should point out, has a GoFundMe page where they raise money to fund their continued search for justice because it is expensive. And they tell us that they've offered to use that money
under the Long John. So one is called STR testing and the other is called SNP testing. So we would actually have to have actual DNA in order to submit it for the SNP testing that would be necessary to do the genealogy research.
Cindy's team, I should point out, has a GoFundMe page where they raise money to fund their continued search for justice because it is expensive. And they tell us that they've offered to use that money to pay for any new DNA testing that the Boulder Police Department needs help to get done. John, it's a very generous offer. You're an experienced member of the force. What was their response?
They said nothing. They didn't accept our offer. We offered to pay for any DNA testing, and so far that's not happened.
So we actually reached out ourselves to the Boulder Police Department for comment. Here's what we were told in part. Because this is an open and active homicide investigation, we are unable to answer your questions without potentially compromising the integrity of the investigation. When there is new information to share with our community, we will do so. We're going to have their full response to DrOz.com. Cindy's dad left behind a list of suspects that he felt very strongly about, that he felt it must be on that list. Her family's team has been researching hard, going through every name on that list. So Cindy, what's the latest on your hunt for the truth?
Well, we've just continued to try and collect DNA and test DNA, but he left us so much information, one of which was the spreadsheet. That was the most helpful information for us.
I'm wondering why she said you would need real DNA. What does that mean? Because as far as I'm aware of, like, I don't know what that means. Like, don't you have real DNA? Because if you don't have real DNA, if we're just going off of that, and that means that you're probably throwing a false positive or of some sort, where you're saying that there's no match, it's an unidentified, well, because you have a bad sample. We talk about testing, maybe we're testing a data. If we're just thinking about, data set of many observations, you're testing data, you need a pretty big data set to kind of increase the power of your estimations and to be confident and to say that, when we test this, we're confident in this way. And so is that what she's saying here? That's interesting.
Along with the PowerPoint presentation that he left that has all of the evidence that he found in this case. But the spreadsheet contains the names of people and items that he ran across in the case file that he thought was important to the case. So they are all listed. There's a list of them. He's got them in tiers. And since he died, we've just been trying to collect DNA from those people and just basically eliminate them from our spreadsheet. And so we have had success. We have not had a match, but we've been able to eliminate some people from that list. So now we have about 10 people that are off the list because of DNA testing.
Cindy, what does it cost to do that testing?
Well, it depends on what kind of DNA we're submitting. If it is like a buccal swab where they swab their own mouths, it costs about $800 to $1,000. And then it just goes up from there, depending on the nature of what we've collected, that they can test a straw or a cup or whatever it may be. And then we've kind of just factored in, and this is just a rough estimate, but probably around $4,000 to $5,000 per person once we do the investigation to try and find these people and get it tested.
Well, it's a drop in the bucket of what's been expended to try to solve this case. The 25th anniversary of this tragic cold case is going to be this Christmas. Cindy, could JonBenét finally be identified this year?
I think so. I think with the how far we've come with DNA technology, there's really no reason that this case can't be solved. My dad said all along that DNA was going to solve this case. And I think that we're in a position now where that can be done. It just takes the effort and the heart of the Boulder Police Department to do that.
And John, why do you think the Boulder Police Department has seemed reluctant to engage?
I can't speak for the Boulder DA. This is not how we would have run the investigation. One thing that Lou brought is experience with over 200 cases. And right before he was brought on to the Boulder DA District Attorney's Office investigative team, I spoke to the then District Attorney Alex Hunter, and I shared with him how Lou had solved a 4-year-old cold case of a 13-year-old little girl who had been abducted in our community by the name of Heather Don Church. Very similar circumstances. Forced entry that was dismissed, a fingerprint left at the crime scene. Lou had that case solved within 3.5 months after I was elected sheriff of El Paso County, and Lou came in and took over that case. And what I told the district attorney was, follow what Lou is telling you, follow where the evidence takes you, support Lou and get behind this. And had they done that, I think this case would have been solved 24 years ago.
And was it ego that prevented them from trusting an outsider?
That's probably part of it. I think, unfortunately, in investigations, and this is from experience being in that case, people in the investigative law enforcement capacity, maybe everybody, you're looking for consensus, and when you have somebody who stands out and is pointing out something different where you're not getting the consensus, and that's what Lou was doing. But he was doing it from a factual basis. He was doing it from a basis of experience and having seen 200 homicide cases. And I think he was ostracized for not going with the flow. It was really a tragic situation, and unless somebody comes in and objectively, takes that case over, who has experience and is willing to exploit that DNA, I'm not sure it'll ever be solved.
Well, let's make this show a call to action. I really am, and I see all the compelling arguments you guys are making. It's for the viewers, I'm sure they're looking at this and saying, guys, wake up. It's right there in front of you. But I've worked in large organizations. I think, John, you got your finger on the pulse. I think sometimes you ignore good advice because you're never a prophet in your own land. Anyway, John, thank you very much. Cindy, God bless your father for doing all this work and getting this set up for you and the rest of your team. This link on your screen is for the GoFundMe page I've been talking about. It's going to help pay for those DNA tests that Cindy's family is using to find JonBenét's killer. Please support their important work. We're also going to have it on DrOz.com. The Discovery Plus documentary, which is fantastic. It's called JonBenét Ramsey, What Really Happened. It's streaming now. Thank you for watching.
I think that we are talking about somebody who intricately knows the house and is acting on that. I think Lou was primed to think that it was somebody outside. I think we need better DNA. And I think that's what the Boulder Police Department was trying to get at when they said, can we exhume the body to try to get more information, to try to get more DNA from the body to analyze and assess the body even more and even better. Maybe get more clues to what we're looking at. But, like I said, at every turn, because this is the case, though, John said no. Patsy said no. Can we get you to take more tests for DNA? They said no. And we're hearing that these tests cost $800 to $4,000. Where the cops are saying we're going to do it. We're going to. See, it doesn't make sense because now you're telling me we're doing a GoFundMe to do it. The cops are trying to do it. The cops are wanting to do it, but you're saying it's not going to come out of your pocket. It's going to come out of the public's pocket. You're saying, no, I don't want to do it because I don't trust these methods, but I would be happy to do it. Which one is it? John, Andrew, which one is it? Didn't make sense. So, that's the analysis on that. I'm even more skeptical of the Ramseys now than I was, because it's weird and almost like it points to you. So that's the video. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Appreciate your engagement. And until next time, take it easy.